The ship screamed as it tore through the atmosphere. Ji-woo held onto her seat with white knuckles, watching fire streak past the windows. Metal groaned and twisted around her. Something exploded in the back of the vessel, and the smell of burning plastic filled her nose. "Hold on!" Captain Hyun-sik shouted from the front. His hands moved fast over the controls, but nothing responded. The ship was falling, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. Ji-woo closed her eyes. She was only 22 years old. She had joined this research mission to study alien life on distant planets. This was supposed to be safe. A simple survey mission to Veyron 7. A frontier world that few humans had visited. They were just supposed to take samples and leave. The impact came hard and sudden. Ji-woo's head snapped forward. Then everything went black. When she opened her eyes again, everything was silent, except for a strange hissing sound. Smoke filled the cabin. Ji-woo's whole body ached, but she could move. She unbuckled her safety harness and fell forward onto her hands and knees. Blood dripped from a cut on her forehead. "Hello?" she called out. Her voice was weak. "Is anyone alive?" A groan answered her from somewhere in the smoke. Ji-woo crawled forward, coughing. She found Da-eun, the pilot, trapped under a collapsed beam. The woman's face was twisted in pain, and her legs were bent at wrong angles. "Don't move," Ji-woo said, though her hands were shaking. "I'll get you out." It took almost an hour to free Da-eun and drag her out of the wreckage. Ji-woo found Captain Hyun-sik in the cockpit, but he was already gone. Tae-yang, her senior researcher, was nowhere to be found. Part of the ship's sidewall had been torn away during the crash. He must have been thrown out somewhere during the fall. Outside, the alien world stretched in every direction. Purple grass covered the ground like a carpet. Strange trees with silver bark and red leaves grew in thick clusters. 3 moons hung in a pink sky. Ji-woo had studied the survey data about Veyron 7, but seeing it in person was different. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. She made a shelter using pieces of the broken ship. Da-eun needed medical attention badly, but the medical supplies were scattered somewhere in the forest. Ji-woo managed to stabilize the pilot's legs with metal rods and fabric from the seats. Da-eun passed out from the pain, which was probably for the best. Ji-woo tried the emergency beacon, but it sparked and died when she activated it. The main transmitter was fried completely. She sat down hard on the ground, fighting back tears. Rescue would come, eventually. The company would notice when they didn't report in. But that could take days, maybe weeks. As the alien sun began to set, Ji-woo heard something moving in the trees. She grabbed a piece of sharp metal and stood up, her heart pounding. The forest had gone quiet. Even the strange bird sounds had stopped. Then she saw the eyes. They glowed like crystals in the fading light, reflecting colors she had never seen before. There were multiple pairs, all watching her from the darkness between the trees. Ji-woo's training kicked in. She had studied xenobiology for 4 years. She knew that showing fear to predators was the worst thing she could do. She stood still and straight, making herself look as big as possible. The creatures stepped out of the shadows, and Ji-woo's breath caught in her throat. They looked like wolves, but wrong, in beautiful ways. Each one had 6 legs, instead of 4. Their fur seemed to shimmer and change colors slightly, like oil on water. They were smaller than she expected, each about the size of a large dog. Their heads were broader than earth wolves, with larger eyes and ears that could rotate independently. There were 5 of them. They moved in a loose circle around her camp, keeping their distance but clearly interested. One of them, with blue markings on its face, tilted its head as it studied her. Another, with golden fur, sniffed the air carefully. The smallest one stayed behind the others, watching nervously. Ji-woo remembered the survey data. These were called Vraxi. The adult versions were massive, the size of horses, and extremely dangerous. But these were pups, young ones. They shouldn't be alone. Vraxi lived in packs with their parents and older siblings. Something must have happened to their family. The boldest pup, one with distinctive markings on its forehead, took a step closer. Jiwoo held her ground. The pup sniffed toward her, then backed away. It made a sound, something between a whine and a growl. The others responded, with similar sounds. They were talking to each other, communicating. Jiwoo watched, fascinated despite her fear. The pups weren't attacking. They were curious, maybe even scared themselves. "It's okay," Jiwoo said softly. The pup's ears all rotated toward her voice. The golden one took a step back. The smallest one crouched low to the ground. But they didn't run away. For almost an hour, Jiwoo and the 5 pups simply watched each other. The alien sky darkened, and strange stars appeared overhead. Jiwoo knew she should go back inside the shelter where it was safer, but something kept her standing there. These creatures were alone, just like her. They had lost their pack. She had lost her crew. Finally, as the last light faded, the pups melted back into the forest. But Jiwoo could still see their glowing eyes in the darkness, arranged in a circle around her camp. They were keeping watch. But were they waiting to attack? Or were they protecting their territory? Maybe both. Jiwoo checked on Da-eun, who was still unconscious but breathing steadily. She sealed the entrance to their shelter, as well as she could, with debris and torn metal sheets. She kept the sharp piece of metal close to her as she lay down on the hard floor. Sleep didn't come easily. Every sound made her jump. She heard the pups moving around outside, their paws soft on the purple grass. Once, she heard something large crashing through the forest farther away, and the pups made warning sounds. Whatever it was, it didn't come close to the camp. As Jiwoo finally started to drift off, one thought kept repeating in her mind. On this entire planet, they might be the only ones who understood what it meant to lose everything in a single moment. Outside, the 5 Vraxi pups settled down in the grass, forming a protective circle around the crashed ship. They didn't understand the strange 2-legged creature inside, but they recognized something in her. She was small and weak like them. She had no pack, just like them. And when they had appeared from the trees, she hadn't run away or attacked. She had stood her ground and spoken in a soft voice. The boldest pup, the one with the forehead markings, kept her eyes on the shelter entrance. Something told her this creature was important. Something told her that maybe, just maybe, they didn't have to be alone anymore. The alien night deepened, and the 3 moons climbed higher in the sky. In the shelter, Jiwoo finally fell asleep. Outside, 5 pairs of crystalline eyes kept watch until dawn. Morning on Veyron 7 came with a purple-orange sunrise that painted the sky in colors Jiwoo had never seen on Earth. She woke up stiff and sore, every muscle in her body complaining. Da-eun was awake too, her face pale with pain. "Water," the pilot whispered. Her lips were cracked and dry. Jiwoo found a water container that had survived the crash and helped Da-eun drink. The woman's legs were badly broken. Without proper medical supplies, infection was a serious risk. Jiwoo needed to find the medical kit that had been stored in the cargo bay. The problem was that the cargo bay had been torn off during the crash and was somewhere in the forest. "I saw wolves last night," Jiwoo said as she checked Da-eun's bandages. "Young ones. 5 of them." Da-eun's eyes widened. "Vraxi pups? Where are their parents?" "I don't know. They seem to be alone." "That's not normal," Da-eun said, then winced in pain. "Vraxi parents are extremely protective. Something bad must have happened to the pack." Jiwoo looked out through a gap in the shelter wall. The pups were still there, lying in the purple grass about 50 meters away. They were watching the shelter with those strange crystalline eyes. As she looked, the golden-furred one stood up and stretched, its 6 legs moving in a pattern that seemed almost like a dance. "I need to get those medical supplies," Jiwoo said. "You're going to get worse if I don't." "Don't go into the forest," Da-eun said weakly. "Adult Vraxi hunt during the day. And there are other things out there. The survey mentioned grells. They're like bears, but worse. Jiwoo knew Da-eun was right. But what choice did she have? She couldn't just watch the pilot die from infection. She gathered what little equipment she could use as weapons. A plasma torch that still had some charge, a long piece of metal pipe, and a knife from the emergency kit. "I'll be back soon," Jiwoo promised. She didn't know if that was true, but she said it anyway. The moment she stepped out of the shelter, all 5 pups stood up. Their ears rotated toward her, and their bodies tensed. Jiwoo walked slowly, trying not to make sudden movements. She headed toward the forest, where she had seen pieces of the ship scattered among the trees. The pups followed her. They stayed about 20 meters back, moving silently through the purple grass. Jiwoo glanced over her shoulder several times. They weren't acting aggressive. They were just following. Like, they were curious about what she was doing. The forest was darker than she expected. The silver-barked trees grew close together, and their red leaves blocked most of the sunlight. Strange insects buzzed around her head. She could hear things moving in the undergrowth, small creatures scurrying away from her footsteps. She found pieces of cargo containers scattered among the trees. Most were empty or filled with useless equipment. Her hands were shaking as she searched. Every shadow looked like a threat. Every sound made her jump. Then she saw the white container with the red medical symbol. It was wedged under a fallen tree about 30 meters ahead. Relief flooded through her. She started toward it, moving faster now. A sound stopped her. A deep, rumbling growl that seemed to come from the ground itself. Jiwoo froze. Slowly, she turned her head. Between her and the medical container stood something massive. It was easily 3 meters tall, covered in thick brown fur. It had a face like a bear but with too many teeth, and arms that ended in claws as long as knives. Blood dripped from a wound on its shoulder. A grell. And it was injured, which made it even more dangerous. The creature saw her and roared. The sound was so loud that Jiwoo felt it in her chest. She took a step back, raising the metal pipe uselessly. The grell took a step forward. There was nowhere to run. The trees were too thick, and the creature was too fast. Then the pups attacked. All 5 of them burst from the undergrowth at once. They didn't make a sound as they moved. The boldest one, with the forehead markings, went straight for the grell's wounded shoulder. The blue-marked pup went for its leg. The golden one circled around, looking for an opening, but they were too small. The grell swung one massive arm and sent the blue-marked pup flying. It crashed into a tree and fell to the ground, whimpering. The smallest pup, the one Jiwoo would later call June, tried to help its sibling and got caught by the grell's other paw. Jiwoo didn't think. She just moved. She activated the plasma torch and ran forward, screaming at the top of her lungs. The torch was meant for cutting metal, not fighting monsters, but it was all she had. She thrust it at the grell's face. The creature roared and stumbled backward, surprised by the sudden bright light and heat. "Get back!" Jiwoo shouted at the pups. She kept the torch between her and the grell, waving it back and forth. The creature was hurt and confused now. It made a huffing sound, then turned and crashed away through the forest, deciding this fight wasn't worth the effort. Jiwoo stood there shaking, the torch still raised, until she was sure the grell was really gone. Then she rushed to the smallest pup. June was lying on the ground, breathing fast and shallow. Blood matted the fur on his side where the grell's claws had caught him. "No, no, no," Jiwoo whispered. She had just watched these creatures save her life. She couldn't let one of them die. She carefully picked up June. He was heavier than he looked, all muscle under the soft fur. The other 4 pups gathered around her, making worried sounds. The blue-marked one was limping, but seemed okay. The golden one sniffed at June anxiously. The bold one with the forehead markings looked at Jiwoo with those crystalline eyes. And Jiwoo felt like the pup was making a decision about her. "I'll help him," Jiwoo said to them. "I promise. She grabbed the medical container with one hand while holding June carefully against her chest with the other. The journey back to the shelter was slow. The 4 uninjured pups walked with her, surrounding her in a protective formation. They kept looking into the forest, watching for threats. When they reached the shelter, Ji-woo didn't even think about keeping the pups out. She carried June inside and laid him gently on the floor. Da-eun watched with wide eyes as Ji-woo opened the medical kit and started treating the wound. "You brought them here?" "They saved my life," Ji-woo said. Her hands were steadier now that she had work to do. She cleaned June's wound, applied antibacterial gel, and carefully stitched the deepest cuts. The pup whimpered but stayed still, like he understood she was helping. The other 4 pups crowded at the entrance to the shelter, their heads poking inside. They watched everything Ji-woo did with intense focus. When she finally finished and June's breathing became more regular, the bold pup took a careful step inside. Then, another. The others followed. Ji-woo sat back, exhausted. 5 alien wolf pups were now inside her shelter, surrounding her and Da-eun. By all the rules of xenobiology she had learned, this should be terrifying. These were predators, wild animals from another world. But as she looked at their faces, watching her with what she could only describe as respect, Ji-woo felt something else. She felt like something important had just happened, something that couldn't be taken back. That night, all 5 pups slept in the shelter. They formed a circle with Ji-woo and Da-eun in the middle. June slept closest to Ji-woo, his head resting against her leg. Every so often, one of the pups would wake up and check on their injured sibling, then settle back down. Ji-woo barely slept. She kept thinking about the way the pups had attacked the Grell without hesitation, trying to protect her, the way they had trusted her to help June, the way they were sleeping here now, peaceful and calm, like this was where they belonged. "They think you're their pack now," Da-eun whispered in the darkness. "Vraxi, don't trust easily. But once they choose someone, it's forever." Ji-woo looked down at the sleeping pups. Their fur glowed very faintly in the dark, creating soft patterns of light. She reached out slowly and gently touched June's head. The pup's ear twitched, but he didn't wake up. "I didn't choose this," Ji-woo whispered back. But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't entirely true. When she had picked up June and carried him back, when she had treated his wounds, when she had let them into the shelter, those had been choices. And maybe the pups weren't the only ones who had decided something today. Outside, the 3 moons rose over the alien landscape. Inside the shelter, a human woman and 5 Vraxi pups slept together, bound by something new and strange and powerful, something that would change everything. The days blended together on Veyron 7. Ji-woo stopped counting after the first week. There was too much to do, too much to learn, and not enough time to worry about numbers. Da-eun was recovering slowly, her legs starting to heal, though she still couldn't walk. The pups were growing fast. Already they were noticeably bigger than when Ji-woo had first seen them. She had given them names. It felt strange at first, naming wild alien creatures, but they responded to the sounds. The bold one with the forehead markings became Hana. The blue-marked one was Bora. The golden-furred pup was Nuri. The smallest, the one she had saved, remained June, and the one with the sky-colored patterns became Hanul. "You're treating them like pets," Da-eun said one morning, watching Ji-woo feed the pups pieces of meat from a creature Hana had killed. "But they're not. They're wild predators." "I know," Ji-woo said. But she didn't stop. The pups needed food, and she needed to understand them. Every day taught her something new. She learned that Vraxi communicated in ways humans didn't naturally notice. Their fur could create patterns of light, bioluminescent signals that flashed too quickly for human eyes to fully process. But when Ji-woo paid attention, she started to see them. A ripple of blue light down Bora's spine meant caution. A golden glow from Nuri, meant contentment. Red patterns on Hana's forehead meant determination or challenge. They also made sounds below the range of human hearing. Ji-woo felt them more than heard them. Vibrations in her chest and bones. Low rumbles that meant comfort. Sharp pulses that meant danger. Long, rolling waves that seemed to mean something like sadness or longing. The pups were smart. Frighteningly smart. They watched everything Ji-woo did and learned from it. When she showed them how to open a sealed container by pressing a specific button, they all learned it in minutes. When she set up snares to catch small animals, they studied the traps and then went out and built their own, modifying the design in ways that worked better for creatures with 6 legs instead of 2 hands. Ji-woo started teaching them to hunt more effectively. She had studied earth-wolf behavior in school, learning about pack hunting strategies and coordination. The Vraxi hunted similarly but with differences that came from having 6 legs and the ability to communicate through light patterns. She showed them techniques, and they showed her their own methods, and together they created something new. Hana was the natural leader among the pups. She made decisions quickly, and the others followed her guidance. But she also looked to Ji-woo before making those decisions, as if asking for approval. Bora was the careful one, always watching for danger. June was still the smallest, but he was brave beyond his size, always trying to prove himself. Hanul was the observer, hanging back and studying situations before acting. "They're bringing you gifts," Da-un said one day, pointing to a pile of objects near the shelter entrance. Strange fruits that grew on the silver trees, the body of a small animal they had hunted, even pretty rocks and crystals that glittered in the sunlight. That's what Vraxi do for their pack leaders. They're showing respect. Ji-woo picked up one of the crystals. It was beautiful, catching the light and splitting it into rainbow colors. She looked at the 5 pups, who were all watching her expectantly. Hana's tail wagged slightly, a gesture that seemed almost dog-like despite the alien appearance. "Thank you," Ji-woo said softly. She didn't know if they understood the words, but they understood the tone. All 5 tails started wagging, and soft lights rippled through their fur. 2 weeks after the crash, everything changed. Ji-woo was working on repairing the emergency beacon when Hana suddenly went rigid. The patterns on her fur flashed bright red. All 5 pups moved instantly, forming a defensive circle around Ji-woo and the shelter. "What is it?" Ji-woo asked, standing up and grabbing her metal pipe. She had learned to trust the pups' instincts. If they sensed danger, there was danger. From the forest came 3 Vraxi. But these weren't pups. They were juveniles, almost full-grown, each nearly as large as an earth horse, their crystalline eyes fixed on Ji-woo's camp, and their lips pulled back to show teeth like knives. The patterns on their fur were dark and aggressive. "Oh no," Da-un breathed from inside the shelter. "Those are challengers. They're here to take territory." Ji-woo's heart pounded. Her 5 pups were brave, but they were so much smaller than the 3 approaching juveniles. In a straight fight, they would lose. But the pups didn't back down. They held their ground, low growls rumbling from their chests. The largest of the 3 juveniles stepped forward. It was a male, with scars on its muzzle, probably from previous fights. It made a sound, deep and challenging, that Ji-woo felt more than heard. The meaning was clear even without words. This was a challenge for territory and dominance. Ji-woo didn't think. She stepped forward, moving in front of her pups. The juvenile's eyes focused on her, and for a moment, it looked confused. A small, weak, 2-legged creature was challenging it. But Ji-woo had been watching the pups for 2 weeks. She had seen how they communicated, how they established dominance, how they resolved conflicts. She planted her feet wide, making herself as big as possible. She stared directly at the juvenile, without blinking, without looking away, and she made a sound in her throat, trying to copy the low-frequency rumble that Hana used when she was asserting authority. It probably sounded ridiculous, but she meant it with every fiber of her being. This was her territory. These were her pups, and she would not back down. The juvenile stopped. Its ears rotated forward, listening. It tilted its head, studying this strange creature. Behind Jiwoo, her 5 pups stood firm, their bodies pressed close to her legs. They added their own rumbles to hers, supporting her challenge. The standoff lasted for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. The 3 juveniles communicated with each other through light patterns too fast for Jiwoo to read. The scarred male took 1 step forward. Jiwoo took 1 step forward too, not giving ground. Her legs were shaking, but she didn't let it show. Finally, the juvenile stopped. It made a sound that was different from the challenge. Something that sounded almost like acknowledgement. The patterns on its fur shifted from aggressive red to neutral blue. It looked at Jiwoo one more time, then turned and walked away. The other 2 juveniles followed. Jiwoo didn't move until they were completely gone. Then her legs gave out, and she sat down hard on the ground. Her whole body was shaking. Hana immediately pressed against her side, and the other 4 pups crowded around her, making concerned sounds. "That was incredible," Da-eun said from the shelter entrance, her voice full of awe. "You just made 3 juvenile Vroxy back down. They recognized you as a legitimate alpha. Jiwoo, do you understand what that means?" Jiwoo didn't answer. She was too busy hugging June, who had climbed into her lap. But she felt it. Something had shifted. The pups weren't just following her anymore. They had chosen her, truly chosen her, as their pack leader. And the juvenile Vroxy had seen it and accepted it. That night, the pups did something they had never done before. They arranged themselves in a circle, with Jiwoo in the center. One by one, they approached her. Each pup touched its nose to her hand, holding the contact for several seconds. As they did, their fur lit up with synchronized patterns, waves of light that pulsed in perfect rhythm. The light grew brighter and brighter until Jiwoo had to squint against it. Then, as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The pups settled around her, their bodies relaxed and content. June yawned, showing all his teeth, and rested his head on her leg. "What was that?" Jiwoo asked Da-eun, who had been watching with wide eyes. "I think," Da-eun said slowly, "that was a bonding ceremony. I've never heard of it happening with a non-Vraxy before, but I read about it in the survey data. It's what young Vraxy do when they accept someone as part of their pack permanently. It's not just following anymore, Jiwoo. They're bound to you now, and you're bound to them." Jiwoo looked down at the 5 sleeping pups. Their fur glowed very softly, creating patterns of light in the darkness. She thought about Earth, about her old life, about the research position she had been so excited about. All of that seemed far away now, like a dream from someone else's life. She gently stroked Hana's fur, and the pup made a contented sound without waking up. Jiwoo had come to this planet to study alien life. She had never imagined she would become part of it. But sitting here now, surrounded by 5 alien wolf pups who trusted her completely, who had chosen her as their alpha, who would fight and die for her, she couldn't imagine being anywhere else. Outside the shelter, the 3 moons hung in the alien sky. In the distance, something howled, a sound that echoed across the purple grasslands. Hana's ear twitched in her sleep, but she didn't wake. She didn't need to. Her alpha was keeping watch. And that was enough. The rescue ship appeared in the sky on the 23rd day after the crash. Jiwoo saw it first. A bright point of light that grew larger as it descended through the atmosphere. Her heart should have leaped with joy. Rescue meant safety, medical care, going home. But as she watched the ship land in the clearing near the crashed vessel, all she felt was dread. The 5 pups sensed her tension immediately. They gathered around her. Hana pressing against her right side, Bora on her left. June, still smaller than his siblings but growing fast, positioned himself in front of her protectively. Their fur rippled with cautious blue patterns. "It's okay," Jiwoo told them, though she wasn't sure if she was lying. These are my people. The rescue ship's door opened, and 5 people in standard Earth Defense Force uniforms emerged. The leader was a tall man, with sharp eyes, and a commander's bearing. He surveyed the scene with obvious surprise, the crashed ship, the makeshift shelter, and most of all, the 5 alien predators surrounding a young woman. "Researcher Jiwoo?" The man called out, his hand resting on the weapon at his belt. "I'm Commander Kang-woo. We're here to extract you and any other survivors." "There's 2 of us," Jiwoo called back. "My pilot Da-eun is in the shelter. Her legs were badly broken. She needs medical attention. Copy that. My medic will see to her." Kang-woo took a step forward, and immediately, all 5 pups lowered their bodies into attack postures, growls rumbling from their chests. He stopped. "You're going to need to control those animals, researcher. We can't approach safely while they're aggressive." "They're not aggressive," Jiwoo said. "They're protective. There's a difference." A woman stepped forward from the rescue team. She was older, with gray streaking her dark hair and the insignia of a xenoanthropologist on her uniform. "I'm Dr. Mi-sun," she said, her voice calm and measured. "I specialize in alien social structures. May I approach slowly?" "I promise I mean no harm," Jiwoo nodded. She placed her hand on Hana's head, feeling the tension in the pup's muscles. "It's okay," she whispered. "Let her come." Hana's ears rotated backward, listening to Jiwoo's voice. The patterns on her fur shifted slightly, from warning red to cautious amber. She didn't relax completely, but she didn't attack either. The other pups took their cues from her. Dr. Mi-sun approached with careful, deliberate steps. Her eyes never left the pups. But there was wonder in her gaze rather than fear. When she was about 3 meters away, she stopped and knelt down, making herself smaller and less threatening. "Remarkable," she breathed. "These are Vraxi pups. They should be with their pack, with adult supervision. But they're here, bonded to you. Researcher Jiwoo, do you understand how extraordinary this is? Vraxi have never bonded with another species. Never. In all our observations, they've been strictly loyal to their own kind. They didn't have a choice," Jiwoo said. "Their pack was killed. They were alone and starving. We helped each other survive." "It's more than survival," Mi-sun said, her eyes moving from pup to pup. "Look at their body language. They're not just comfortable with you. They're treating you as pack, as alpha." "This is unprecedented," Kang-woo's voice cut through the moment. "That's fascinating, Doctor. But we have a mission to complete. We need to evacuate the survivors and leave. Now." It into everyone to evacuate the survivors. Jiwoo felt ice form in her stomach. "What about the pups? What about them?" Kang-woo said impatiently. "They're native fauna. They stay here. Regulations are clear, we don't interfere with indigenous life. I'm not leaving them." The words came out before Jiwoo could think about them. But once said, she knew they were true. She looked at Kang-woo steadily. "They saved my life. Multiple times. And I'm their alpha now. I can't just abandon them." "You don't have a choice," Kang-woo said, his voice hardening. "You're a citizen of Earth. You follow Earth laws. And Earth laws say we don't remove native wildlife from their planets. Then I'm not going." The standoff was broken by a sound from the forest. It was deep. So low that Jiwoo felt it in her bones more than heard it. Everyone turned to look. The 5 pups immediately moved into formation, creating a protective barrier around Jiwoo. Their fur flashed warning red. From the trees emerged the largest Vraxi Jiwoo had ever seen. She was massive, easily twice the size of an adult Earth horse. Scars covered her body, marks of countless fights and hunts. Her fur was silver with age, and her crystalline eyes held a weight of intelligence that was almost frightening. The patterns on her fur were complex, shifting through colors in sequences Jiwoo couldn't begin to interpret. "Oh no," Mi-sun whispered. That's an elder. A territory matriarch. Everyone stay very still. Kang Wu's hand moved to his weapon, but Mi-sun grabbed his arm. Don't. If you threaten an elder, she'll kill all of us before you can draw. Just don't move. The elder Vraxi walked forward with calm, measured steps. She was so large that the ground seemed to shake with each footfall. Her eyes fixed on Ji-woo, and the human woman felt naked under that gaze, like every secret and weakness was being examined and judged. The 5 pups whined nervously, but they held their ground. Hana took one step forward, placing herself between Ji-woo and the elder. The small pup's fur blazed bright red, a challenge that was brave and foolish in equal measure. The elder stopped. She looked at Hana, and something flickered in her ancient eyes. Then, she made a sound, a rumble so deep and complex that Ji-woo felt like she was listening to a language she could almost understand. Hana responded, her own sounds high and desperate compared to the elder's bass tones. The other pups joined in, all of them communicating with the elder in ways Ji-woo couldn't follow. Finally, the elder turned her attention back to Ji-woo. She took one step closer. Then, another. The rescue team was frozen. Terrified, Mi-sun had tears in her eyes. Probably certain they were all about to die. The elder stopped right in front of Ji-woo, so close that the human could feel heat radiating from her massive body. They looked at each other. Predator and prey. Ancient and young. Alien and human. Ji-woo's instincts screamed at her to run, but she forced herself to stand still. She had learned from the pups. Running would mean death. Standing firm might mean death too, but at least it was a death with dignity. The elder made another sound. This one was different, not a challenge or a threat, but something else. A question, maybe. Or a test. Ji-woo didn't know what to do. So she did what felt right. She bowed her head slightly, not breaking eye contact but showing respect. And she spoke. I didn't ask for this, she said, her voice shaking. I didn't plan to become their alpha. But they chose me, and I chose them. I'll protect them with my life. I'll teach them everything I can. And I'll never abandon them. That's my promise. She had no idea if the elder understood her words. But maybe understanding went beyond words. Maybe it was about tone, about intention, about the bond that connected her to the 5 pups pressed against her legs. The elder stared at her for a long moment. Then she did something that made Mi-sun gasp. She lowered her massive head and touched her nose to Ji-woo's hand. It was the same gesture the pups had done during the bonding ceremony. The touch lasted for 3 heartbeats. Then, the elder pulled back. The patterns on her fur shifted to something Ji-woo had never seen before, a complex mix of blue and gold and green that seemed to shimmer and flow like water. The 5 pups' fur responded with similar patterns, creating a rippling light show that left Ji-woo dizzy. The elder turned and began to walk away. But she paused at the edge of the forest and made one final sound, directed at the pups. They responded immediately, their postures relaxing, their tails starting to wag. What just happened? Kang Wu asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Mi-sun was crying openly now, but she was smiling too. She tested Ji-woo, and Ji-woo passed. The elder just gave her blessing. She recognized Ji-woo as a legitimate alpha of these pups. She turned to Ji-woo with wonder in her eyes. Do you understand what this means? An elder Vraxi just accepted a human as pack. This is first contact. Real first contact. Not with technology or weapons or treaties, but with understanding and respect. Kang Wu looked shaken. This is beyond my authority to decide. We need to contact Fleet Command. Then do it, Ji-woo said firmly. But I'm not leaving without them. The pups pressed closer to her, their fur glowing softly. June licked her hand, and Hana leaned her weight against Ji-woo's leg. Bora, Nuri, and Hanul formed a protective circle, their eyes scanning for any threat to their alpha. Ji-woo looked at the rescue team, at the people from her own species who now seemed somehow foreign. Then she looked down at the 5 alien creatures who had chosen her, who trusted her, who would follow her anywhere. "I'm their alpha," she said quietly. "That's not something you can put in a regulation or explain in a report. It just is. And if you can't accept that, then you'll have to leave without me. One son. One son. One son." In the forest, hidden in shadows, the elder Vraxi watched. She had lived for many cycles, had seen many things. But this was new. A human, weak and small, who had earned the loyalty of young Vraxi not through strength but through kindness, who had stood before an elder without running, who had promised protection even knowing it might mean her death. The elder made a deep sound of satisfaction. Perhaps these humans were not all bad. Perhaps there was hope for understanding between their kinds. Time would tell. But today, this human had proven herself worthy. The elder turned and disappeared into the forest, leaving the humans to figure out what came next. The orbital station above Veyron 7 was called Gateway 9, and it was full of people who didn't know what to do with Jiwoo. She sat in a sterile meeting room with the 5 pups arranged around her chair, while important people argued about regulations and precedents and the future of human-Vraxi relations. Daun was in the medical bay, finally getting proper treatment for her legs. The pilot had cried when they separated, partly from relief at being rescued, and partly because she would miss the pups, especially Nuri, who had spent hours lying next to her in the shelter, keeping her company while Jiwoo worked. "The regulations are clear," said a stern woman from Earth Colonial Administration. "Native fauna cannot be removed from their homeworlds, except for approved scientific study. And these creatures are not specimens, they're bonded companions. There's no legal framework for this situation. Then we create a new framework," said Dr. Misun firmly. She had barely left Jiwoo's side since they arrived on the station. "We're witnessing something unprecedented. These Vraxi chose a human as their pack leader. That suggests an intelligence level we haven't properly recognized. They should be classified as sentient beings, not animals." "That's a massive leap," another official argued. "Sentience classification requires years of study, approved testing, peer review." "I can prove it right now," Jiwoo interrupted. Everyone turned to look at her. She had been quiet through most of the meeting, overwhelmed by the bureaucracy and politics. But this she knew. "Give me a test. Any intelligence test you want. I'll have the pups complete it." A man Jiwoo hadn't met before leaned forward. He wore the insignia of a xenobiologist. "I'm Dr. Young Jae," he said. "I was actually your professor's colleague at university. I've been studying the recordings from your shelter. The way these Vraxi communicate, their problem-solving abilities, their social structure, it's all consistent with sentient intelligence. But official classification requires demonstration." "Then let's demonstrate," Jiwoo said. For the next 3 hours, Dr. Young Jae put the pups through a series of tests, problem-solving puzzles that required understanding of cause and effect, social scenarios that tested empathy and cooperation, communication challenges that required them to convey complex information. The pups excelled at everything. Hana figured out how to open a locked box in under 2 minutes, using her 6 legs and nose in ways the test designers hadn't anticipated. Bora demonstrated understanding of other individuals' perspectives by alerting June to a hidden treat that only Bora could see. All 5 pups worked together to move a heavy object by coordinating their efforts without any verbal commands from Jiwoo, just their own, light-pattern communication. The officials watched in silence. Even the skeptical ones couldn't deny what they were seeing. These weren't just smart animals. These were people. In all the ways that mattered. They thought, they felt, they communicated, they made choices. They had personalities and preferences and relationships. "Extraordinary," Dr. Youngjae breathed, watching June gently help Hanul reach a platform that was too high. "They're showing altruistic behavior, abstract thinking, and complex social bonding. This meets every criterion for sentience." The stern woman from colonial administration looked uncomfortable. If we classify them as sentient, there are legal implications. Rights, protections, diplomatic considerations. Good, Mi-sun said firmly. There should be. We've been treating Vraxi as dangerous wildlife, when they're actually an intelligent species. That needs to change. A new voice entered the conversation through the room's communication system. This is Admiral Sung-ho, the voice said, carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed. I've been monitoring this situation. I'll be arriving at the station within the hour. No decisions will be made until I've assessed the situation personally. Ji-woo felt the pups tense around her. They sensed her anxiety. Hana pressed closer, and June climbed into her lap despite being too large for it. His weight was comforting. It'll be okay, she whispered to them, hoping it was true. Admiral Sung-ho arrived exactly 1 hour later. He was an older man, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much of the universe. He walked into the observation room, where Ji-woo waited with the pups, and studied them all carefully. Researcher Ji-woo, he said formally. I've read all the reports. I've watched the video recordings. I've reviewed the intelligence tests. But I need to see this for myself. These creatures, they truly recognize you as their leader? Yes, sir, Ji-woo said. And I recognize them as my pack. Pack. The Admiral repeated, tasting the word. That's a strong commitment. Are you prepared for what that means? You're young. You have your whole career ahead of you. Taking responsibility for 5 alien beings will change everything. You might never be able to live a normal life again. Ji-woo looked at the 5 pups. Hana met her eyes, and the patterns on the pup's fur glowed with trust and loyalty. Bora leaned against her leg. Nuri's tail wagged gently. June had fallen asleep in her lap. Hanwoo watched the Admiral carefully, ready to defend Ji-woo if needed. I know, Ji-woo said, and I've already made my choice. These aren't pets or research subjects. They're my family. I won't abandon them. The Admiral nodded slowly. Then he did something unexpected. He pulled out a small device from his pocket and set it on a table near the window. It beeped softly. That's a thermal regulator, he said. It's malfunctioning. In about 30 seconds, it's going to overheat and potentially explode. Small explosion, but enough to hurt someone. Before Ji-woo could react, June woke up and jumped from her lap. The smallest pup ran directly to the device and used his nose to push it away from the Admiral, toward a corner of the room. Hana immediately understood and grabbed the device carefully in her jaws, carrying it to the window. Bora hit the window control with her paw. They had learned how to operate simple controls during the testing, and Hana dropped the device out into the void of space. The whole thing took less than 15 seconds. The pups worked together perfectly, removing the threat without any commands from Ji-woo or training for this specific scenario. They had simply understood the problem and solved it. Admiral Sung-ho smiled. The device wasn't actually going to explode. I had the engineers rig it to just beep like that. I needed to see how they would react to danger. He looked at Ji-woo with new respect. They didn't hesitate. They protected me. A stranger. Because I was in this room with their alpha. That's not animal behavior. That's sentient choice. He turned to the observation window, where the other officials were watching. I'm making an executive decision. These Vraxi are to be classified as sentient beings, effective immediately. Researcher Ji-woo is to be given a new position as ambassador to the Vraxi species. She will return to Veyron 7 with her pack to establish a formal research station and begin the process of diplomatic contact. But sir, the colonial administration woman protested, she's only 22. She has no diplomatic training. She has something more important. The Admiral interrupted. She has their trust, and they have hers. That's more valuable than any amount of training. He turned back to Ji-woo. This won't be easy. You'll be under constant scrutiny. Every decision you make will be analyzed and debated. You'll be responsible not just for your pack, but for the future of human-Vraxi relations. Are you certain you want this? Ji-woo thought about her old dreams working in a lab, publishing research papers, living a safe and comfortable life on Earth. Then she thought about sleeping under alien stars with 5 warm bodies pressed against her. She thought about running through purple grass, learning to hunt, earning the respect of an elder. She thought about being chosen. I'm certain, she said. 3 weeks later, Ji-woo stood on Veyron 7 again. But everything was different now. A proper research station had been built near the crash site, with living quarters, laboratories, and communication equipment. A small team of scientists had volunteered to join her, all specialists in xenobiology, linguistics, and anthropology. Dr. Youngjae was among them, excited to study Vraxi intelligence up close. But the best part was watching the pups know, not pups anymore. Adolescents now race through their home territory. They had grown so much in just a few weeks. They would be full adults soon, massive and powerful. But they would always be her pack. Ji-woo walked away from the station, heading toward a cliff that overlooked the valley. The 5 Vraxi followed her, their movements perfectly coordinated. They climbed the cliff together, and at the top, Ji-woo sat down to watch the sunset. 3 moons were already visible in the purple-orange sky. A sound made her turn. From the forest emerged the elder, the massive silver Vraxi who had tested and accepted Ji-woo. But she wasn't alone. Behind her came 10 more adult Vraxi, all different sizes and ages. They approached slowly, carefully, and arranged themselves on the cliff. The elder made a deep, complex sound. Hana responded, her voice stronger now, more mature. The other 4 joined in. Then, the 10 adult Vraxi added their voices. The sound grew and grew, echoing across the valley. A harmony of frequencies both heard and felt. Dr. Youngjae's voice crackled through Ji-woo's communicator. Are you seeing this? They're inviting you to join a pack call. This is how Vraxi communicate across long distances, share territory information, and bond as a community. They're including you in it. Ji-woo looked at the elder, who watched her expectantly. The human woman didn't have the vocal range or the fur patterns to truly join the song. But she could try. She opened her mouth and howled, adding her human voice to the chorus of alien calls. It should have sounded wrong, out of place. But somehow, it fit. The Vraxi adjusted their tones to include hers, weaving her voice into their song. For several minutes, they sang together on that cliff, 1 human, 15 Vraxi, creating something new. When the song ended, the elder approached Ji-woo one more time. She touched her nose to Ji-woo's hand, gentle despite her size. Then she turned and led her pack back into the forest. But Ji-woo understood the message. This wasn't goodbye. This was welcome. The elder had brought her pack to meet Ji-woo, to include her in their community. The door was open now for more contact, more understanding. Hana pushed against Ji-woo's side, and the human wrapped her arms around the adolescent Vraxi's neck. The other 4 crowded close, all of them touching her, connecting with their alpha. Thank you, Ji-woo whispered to them. Thank you for choosing me. Back at the research station, Dr. Youngjae and the other scientists were celebrating. First contact had truly been made, not with weapons or fear, but with respect and understanding. The future of human Vraxi relations looked bright, but Ji-woo wasn't thinking about politics or history. She was thinking about right now, this moment. She was sitting on an alien cliff, surrounded by 5 beings who had become her family. She had come to this planet as a researcher, planning to observe life from a distance. Instead, she had become part of it. The 5 Vraxi settled around her as the sky darkened and the stars came out. They were the same stars Ji-woo had seen from Earth, but they looked different from here. More beautiful, somehow. Or maybe she was different now. Changed by her time on this world, by the bonds she had formed. by the responsibilities she had accepted. June rested his head in her lap, no longer the smallest but still her gentle boy. Hana sat proud and tall, already showing signs of the leader she would become. Bora kept watch, eyes scanning for danger. Nuri groomed Hanuel's fur, the two of them content and peaceful. This was her pack. This was her home. And as Jiwoo looked up at the stars, she knew that she had found something rare and precious. Not just acceptance, but belonging. Not just survival, but purpose. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. There would be more Vraxi to meet, more protocols to establish, more bridges to build between species. But that was tomorrow. Tonight, Jiwoo was simply an alpha with her pack, watching the moons rise over an alien world that no longer felt alien at all. It felt like home. In the distance, the elders' howl echoed across the valley. One by one, other packs joined in, their voices creating a symphony that seemed to celebrate something new and hopeful. And on the cliff, a human woman and 5 Vraxi added their voices to the song, proving that sometimes the greatest discoveries aren't about studying life, they're about living it.